What's up, everybody? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and on this channel, we break down the trials and cases you care most about so you can understand how the American civil and criminal justice system works. And we try to make sure you understand what your rights are in every situation, which is why we try to walk you through the entire legal process while also answering your insightful questions along the way. And while it's not legal advice, it's always exciting. So buckle up for another episode of The Lawyer You Know.
Hi, everyone. Pete Sardis for The Lawyer You Know. Aiden Fucci's lawyers have moved to continue the trial. We'll talk about what that motion and the hearing looked like, and we're going to figure out what the implications are for this case and what we can expect, if anything, for next week. But before we go into that, I'd like to take a moment and do a special shout out to Nicole. Thank you for the shirt from West Point, and thank your nephew, please, for getting this for me and sending it off. I very much appreciate the sentiment. For those of you that may not know, I spent 10 years in the Army, and Nicole has a nephew who is in his final year at the United States Military Academy at West Point, who sent her this shirt, and she, in turn, sent it to me. So thank both of you for the shirt. All right, let's get into it. We talked about this in a previous episode. I was expecting Aiden Fucci's lawyers to file a motion to continue this trial before it started, and it in fact happened. What I wasn't expecting to happen was for Aiden Fucci's lawyers to file the motion like a couple hours before the pretrial hearing on Wednesday. The basic gist is this. Aiden Fucci says that he wants to appeal the court's decision granting the state's motion to only have a 6-person jury as opposed to a 12-person jury to the Fifth District Court of Appeals. The court listened to this argument during the pretrial, and the basic gist is this. Number one, you knew that the state had filed the motion asking for a reduced number of jurors. And to be clear, because Aiden Fucci is a minor, he is not eligible for the death penalty, which means that this is not a death case, even though it is a capital offense. There will be no death penalty on the table. And because of that, the Florida statute says there are only 6 persons impaneled on this jury, not a full 12. 12 is reserved only for death cases here in Florida. The defense's response is, well, Judge, if you look at the timing of when we have to file a response of pleading and when the state has the opportunity to reply, the time period goes out beyond the beginning of this trial, which is scheduled for this Monday. The court then kind of admonishes the defense and said, if you guys thought that this was this important, you should have filed this immediately. You should have also considered filing what's called an extraordinary writ as an emergency with the 5th DCA, which is the appellate circuit up in the Jacksonville, St. Augustine area. That being said, if you would have filed an emergency extraordinary writ, you could have been in a situation where the appellate court may have actually stayed these proceedings to make a determination about whether or not you have standing to file this particular motion at this point in time. Let me clarify what I mean by that. There are some things that can be appealed at any point in time. There are some things that you have to wait until the case has a final decision before you can ask the appellate court to reconsider. Now, the court's position is that because the court granted the state's motion, and the granting of the state's motion to only have 6 jurors is in line with the case law in Florida, and the court did not go against the standing law, there is no interlocutory appeal, meaning you can't appeal that issue in the middle of the trial. You actually have to wait until there's a final judgment or a final ruling on this case, a verdict, for example, in order to appeal that issue. So at this point, the court has denied the defense's motion to continue this case. I'm uncertain if the defense is going to file an emergency extraordinary writ at the 5th DCA, and if they do, will the 5th District Court of Appeals consider it before the hearing, actually the trial, starts on Monday. Speaking of the trial, we're going to follow this trial. It's going to be broadcast, so I'm going to watch it as it goes. And I'm going to give you recaps at night to give you an indication about what's going on. even though at this point insanity is not on the table, there are going to be a lot of major issues that the court is going to have to deal with in this case. First of all, you know that there have been rulings in the past by the judge. There will be autopsy photos that are going to be shown to this jury pool. That's going to be an issue that's going to be litigated a little bit further during the trial. There are motions that have been filed by the defense that I believe the court is going to have no choice but to consider in the course of this trial. Those motions include things like the fact that there were satanic photographs found in Aiden Fucci's room. What we know is that the depositions of some of his friends were taken by the parties, and at this point, the indication is that Aiden Fucci's friends gave him these satanic pictures, so he just kept them. So the defense is trying to keep them out because they believe it will mischaracterize Aiden Fucci or attack his character, which is more prejudicial to him than it is probative to the state for purposes of conviction on this case. Some other interesting things that I think are going to come up. We know that there is a knife that was recovered from a pond nearby. The state obviously is going to try to show how that knife is corroborated towards the 114 stab wounds on Tristan Bailey's body. But there's also a series of knives that were found spread out throughout the rooms in Aiden Fucci's home. And the state wants to show that these knives in all these other places, in the bedrooms, inside of cabinets, underneath mattresses, all over the house, somehow relate to his mens rea, meaning to his thought process about committing this murder. The defense has said, just because he keeps knives under his bed, doesn't mean anything in relation to this murder, since you actually have the weapon that you believe is the murder weapon. Why do you got to bring this up? Again, is this character assassination, or does this have something to do with proving guilt or innocence? We'll find out during the trial. What else do I expect we're going to see or we're going to hear about? I believe that there is going to be a lot of chatter about text messages and contents of cell phones to include playlists, things like that. The defense obviously wants to keep these out. The state is going to say that these show his mental processes, meaning Aiden Fucci's, and are going to be relevant to his decision-making to engage in conduct that ultimately led to the murder of Tristan Bailey. We'll see if the judge does agree with the state or not, but I will keep you posted as that stuff happens. Other than that, the defense has already made an indication that they're going to argue about something involving preemptory jury strikes. And what does that mean? In actually most jurisdictions, the parties have the right to challenge jurors for any reason or no reason at all, just because you don't like that person, as long as the reason that is picked does not have something to do with a protected class, race, religion, creed, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, things like that. So as long as it's not based on something of that nature, you can strike somebody simply because you don't like the color of their shirt they're wearing. Now, I'm unsure about what the defense is going to argue, but it seemed like at the pretrial hearing, their argument was that now that this is not a 12-person jury, are they only going to have 3 preemptory challenges as opposed to the 10 that they would have under the course of a murder case, a normal course or murder case? Well, the court kind of alluded that I don't know if there's going to be a problem with this, because even though this is not a case where Aiden Fucci can be sentenced to death, it is still a capital murder trial, at which point you still should have the standard 10 preemptory challenges. So my gut says the defense is going to raise this issue. I think the judge very well may just agree with them and give them the 10 preemptory challenges, because the way I read the particular statute, I think the judge is kind of alluding to the same thing. Because it's a murder trial, whether or not it's a 6-person jury or a 12-person jury has nothing to do with how many preemptory challenges. It qualifies as a death case. There's 10, not the standard 3. So let's see if I'm right about that. Let's see if the court agrees with the defense, and we'll see what happens there. But for now, if you enjoy the video, give me a thumbs up. If you've enjoyed this series, please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. And as always, leave me questions and comments down below. We'll follow this thing as it happens. I'm going to give you recaps next week, so I'll see you soon.